Hi folks, it's Stephanie here from Bestseller in 48 Hours, and today we're going to look at the opening of your book. Now, before we do this, I want you to think about what your behaviour is when you're in a bookstore or on Amazon when you're thinking about buying a book. You tend to look at the cover, then you look at the blurb, you look at the title, and then you look inside the book. And what most people tend to do is they read the opening sentence, and if it grabs them, they read the next sentence and then the next sentence and the next. But it's absolutely crucial to have an attention-grabbing opening that makes people want to read on, that gives them a reason to keep turning the pages. Often people don't read further than the first paragraph or the first few lines, and sometimes that can be enough, often I should say that can be enough to make people decide whether or not to buy a book. In fact, research has been done that shows it takes most people between 8 and 12 seconds to decide whether to buy a book or not. And that's, as I say, exactly the same on Amazon. Now we have the inside the book function that people can use, but in a bookstore you've got the physical book to do that with. So let's think about what you need to do when you're starting your first chapter. You don't necessarily need to do that as you're writing it, but you can always go back and do it when you've finished your book, because the first chapter is the most important chapter that you're going to write in your book. Your first sentence is probably the most important sentence you're going to write in your book. So I'm going to look now at some of the starting points, because often what I find is that people's first chapter is sometimes their third chapter or their fourth chapter, and they just need to kind of flip them around a bit, the order of the chapters. So here are some of the things that work really, really well in an opening. Something that's attention grabbing, that grabs people's attention, something intriguing or surprising or dramatic. The reader benefit, some sort of benefit to the reader, that the reader's aware that if they read the book they're going to benefit in some way. Some sort of metaphor, a powerful metaphor that captures their imagination and makes them think about things in a different way. An example we've given before is Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Even if you haven't read that book, you've probably heard of the metaphor because it's so appropriate to relationships. A then and now contrast. This can be really powerful because it's a kind of before and after contrast. So it shows how things were and how things are now, and often it's a huge change. Drama, that can come under something being attention grabbing. You can use dialogue to bring things to life. Humour, this is quite hard to pull off unless you're somebody who's very funny, but humour works very well. And the key thing here is demonstrating your understanding of the problem or issue that your reader has. If you're writing a problem to solution book, where you're solving somebody's problem, you're helping them overcome challenges, or that you're helping them to achieve their goals, you're demonstrating that you completely understand where they are now or where they've been and where they want to go. So what I'm going to do now is look at some opening sentences for books and give you examples of why they work and how they might contrast with a different kind of sentence that you'd use for an opening, so you have some sort of idea yourself when you're writing your book. So here we go. This is I Beat Back Pain, So Can You, Cure Back Pain Without Surgery or Drugs by one of my clients, Peter Johnson. And his opening sentence is, a few years ago I had a major back problem that robbed me of my ability to walk. My life was in turmoil. So he goes on to talk about how his life was in turmoil and how he turned it around through basically curing his back pain without having any surgery or drugs. So it's inspiring. It's a personal story. It's a true story. And it shows he completely understands and gets where his readers are likely to be. So anybody who's suffering from back pain, here's somebody who's walked the walk, who's been through it before, and they totally get where he is now. So that's his opening sentence for that book. Chapter 4. Now this is a comparison with what he might have put in the opening, or anyone might have put in an opening chapter. There is no one area that will solve a back problem. It is a build-up of many things that will make a difference. Now this is fine as a chapter opening. It works well. It gives you information if you've got back pain. but it's not attention grabbing in the same way as the chapter opening that he chose. So I hope you can see the difference between the first one and the second. Now, another book, When the Apple of Your Eye is Rotten at the Core. This is written by a police officer who was one of my clients, who's written about domestic violence and showing how it can happen in any relationship. And it tells her personal story as well as giving information and suggestions about how you can help yourself if you're in that situation. So her opening sentence is, I never thought it would happen to me. I had a great childhood. I had ambition, confidence and self-belief, and above all, I was a police officer. I should say sentences rather than sentence. So hopefully you can see again why this might be a really, really powerful opening, because it shows that she's being vulnerable. She's revealing personal details about her own personal story. It's saying why you would listen to her over a different type of book, why this author is authoritative. She's experienced it. She has walked the walk, as with Peter, and it's a very personal way of addressing the reader and revealing things about her own personal life. Now, here's her opening for chapter 2. My experience within the area of domestic violence initially came from joining Essex Police as a police officer, and very early on in my police career having to attend domestic violence incidents. Now again, this is absolutely fine as an opening to a chapter, but hopefully you can see the difference between the opening for a chapter 2 opening and the chapter 1 opening. One is attention grabbing and very personal. It connects emotionally. The other is slightly more distanced and removed and objective. So the first one connects emotionally on an emotional level with the reader, and it's intriguing. It makes them want to read on and find out what happens. Right, the next book, Ian Wallace, Legally Avoid Property Taxes. It's written by an accountant who gives 51 top tips to save property taxes and increase your wealth. So basically what he's done is made what people often consider to be a boring topic, which is accountancy and going to see your accountant, into something that's of huge benefit. So there's huge benefit here. Imagine having to write a cheque to the Inland Revenue for 1.8 million. Can you feel the pain? Can you see how many noughts that is? So he goes on to explain how he can save you having to pay huge amounts of property tax. And so by reading the book, you can learn how to save money if you're a property investor. Now, a comparison with a later chapter. Many people who start out in the property business call themselves investors, but are they really property investors or are they really property traders? And again, hopefully you can see the difference between one that's very personal, that's actually addressing the reader, asking them questions, getting them involved, giving them an emotional hook, and implying that there'll be a huge benefit by reading the book and saving money. And this one, which is slightly more detached and removed. Yes, it's informative. Yes, it raises a question, but not in quite the same way as, say, as an opening sentence. So as I say, as you're writing your book, be constantly on the lookout for different hooks or angles that could later become your opening sentence or your opening chapter 1. And as I said, often what I find is, as you're kind of warming up as you're writing the book, sometimes it's your chapter 3 where you really get going, and it just means kind of reordering the chapters later on sometimes. Okay, final one that I'm going to show you. Do you choose your dog? I'll start again. Do you choose your dog more carefully than your husband? By Dr. Annie Katsina. This is a book about relationships, giving people advice on choosing a good partner. So she starts with a dialogue which is very dramatic. You have to choose between me and the dog, my partner snarled. Reader, I did, without even thinking. It's got to be the dog, I said. So it's humorous, but at the same time it makes a valuable point. You want to find out what's happening. You understand that there's probably a lot of pain behind this as well, but it's written in a funny way, and it shows that she's also been through the problem. She understands it. That's her experience. That's why you should listen to her. That's why she has an area of expertise, because she completely gets it. She gets what you're likely to be going through if you're a reader of this book. Here's her chapter 5 opening. Again, it's an absolutely fine opening, but just not as the opening of your book. So in this chapter, we'll be looking at how we women end up making wrong decisions with the best possible intentions, basing ourselves on the misleading triumvirate of faith, hope, and churning insecurity. As I say, absolutely fine as a chapter opening, but as an opening for your book, it's not quite so attention grabbing as the other one. So I'll just give you a summary again of what you're aiming for when you're opening your book. Emotion is key. People buy books because for emotional reasons, because it connects with them on a heart level, not necessarily on a head level, on an intellectual level, but on a heart level emotionally. Then and now contrasts work really, really well. How things used to be, how they are now. A personal story always is going to hook people in. Benefits for the reader, the benefits either implied implicitly or overtly explain what the benefits are likely to be of reading your book, so they realise that by reading your book it's going to help them solve a problem that they have or help them achieve a goal that they have. Some sort of intrigue or drama, and you can use dialogue for that, and that really, really brings things to life. Humour, if you're somebody who's good at humour and funny anecdotes or wit, but that's something you have to kind of, it can be an acquired sense of humour sometimes, so that can be probably the hardest one, is humour to use, because not everybody's going to have your same sense of humour. And finally, metaphor, some sort of powerful metaphor that sums up your problem that you're covering, or the solution you're offering, that's going to capture people's imagination. So what I suggest you do now is put your opening lines on our Facebook group. You should be a member already. If not, there should be a link beneath this video, but put some opening lines on the Facebook group and ask for feedback. So maybe put 2-3 maximum lines on there as your opening sentences for your book to get some feedback about which one people find most gripping or intriguing, and get some feedback. All right, see you on the next video.